Good afternoon. My name is Gloria Leal. I'm an attorney consultant here in Austin, and I am very, very privileged and proud to introduce our next past president. Ms. Martha Dickie is a well-known leader in Austin, Travis County, and the Texas legal, political, and women's community. She's currently a partner with Amanza, Blackburn, Dickey, and Mitchell. Would you tell us where you're from, what your background is, and also where you went to school?
I was born in Denton, Texas, and come from a long line of Texans. But when I was 5, we left. My dad went to work for Senator Ralph Yarborough, and we moved to Washington, D.C. He then transferred to the State Department, and in 1969, he transferred to the Foreign Service, and he moved my entire family, of which there's a lot. I'm one of 7 kids, and we moved to Nairobi, Kenya. So I went all through junior high and high school and graduated from high school at the Nairobi International School. And then when I graduated from high school, I came here, and one of my new brother-in-law told me that I should apply to Plan 2. I had no idea what that was. So I applied to Plan 2 and went to UT for 4 years, and then went to the University of Texas Law School 2 weeks after I graduated from undergraduate school, which that sounds kind of silly now, but that's what I did. I got out of law school in 80. I clerked for a federal judge for 2 years. In 82, I was planning on going traveling. My parents were living in West Africa, and I was waiting on a boyfriend. And I went over and got a job at a Minton Burton Foster and Collins firm, criminal civil firm here in town. And I was just going to stay 3 months. And I stayed for the next 23 years.
Do you recall what one of your goals or some of your goals were while you were president?
I won't tell you that I remember what I was doing 36 years ago. I mean, I was busy practicing law. I was married, but I didn't have any kids. So I had a busy litigation practice at my law firm. We were trying to do legal education back then, and we were growing the sections of the Austin Bar. I don't know how many sections there are now, but there were 8 or 10 back then.
Tell me about your career after being president.
It connected me with people in the legal community that I might not have otherwise been friends with, right? I've been friends with Tom Watkins since I started practicing law. I got to be friends with Lloyd Lockridge through all of these things because they were former Austin Bar presidents and former state bar people. And in the normal course of things, a 25-year-old and then a 32-year-old would not get to be friends with some of the serious legal legends in our community. And so it drew me in to a community of friends that were different than I was. And I think they appreciated the fact that I was different than they were. It was mutually beneficial, but it gives you a community of people that are interested in public service, in the third branch of government, in making ourselves and our society better people. And that may sound corny, but I think it's really true, because why else would you be doing it, frankly? To make friends, to make connections, but to also do something that you felt like you were at least striving to improve things. So, I mean, that was the benefit that I got. In terms of where I went, after I was president of the Travis County Bar at that point in time, then our good old friend Delane said, now you have to run for the State Bar Board. And I had the temerity to argue with her and said, why? And she said, well, if you don't run, there won't be one woman elected to that board. And it's true. I was that year, would have been 1989. I was the only elected woman on the State Bar Board. The following year, my friend Colleen McHugh was also elected. And as time went by, of course, that has accelerated to where I don't know what the head count is now, but I do know the last 3 presidents of the state bar before our friend Steve Benesh were all women. And then last year it was the TYLA, those young lawyers, the chairman of the board, and the president were all women.
Let me ask you about Governor Ann Richards.
When I started working at Minton Burton, Ann Richards was a county commissioner for Precinct 3. So that's when I first met her. And my law firm represented the county in civil matters and in various things. And then she became state treasurer. And friends of mine from law, Selena Romero was the general counsel over there. And so I still did work with them. And then when she became governor, we represented her in several lawsuits. She got sued for political discrimination, for firing Republicans and hiring Democrats. And we tried that lawsuit 2 different times and won both times. So I was sort of outside counsel, and she appointed me to the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission. So then I served on the TABC for 7 years because Anna appointed me.
How has the practice of law or legal community in Austin changed since you were president?
When I graduated from law school in 1980 and went to work for Judge Roberts, there were no computers. We didn't have word processors. We had electric typewriters. You were going to docket call, which you had to do in person in Travis County. And at docket call, if you were going to trial or having a hearing, you had to show up and announce, and the other side was there. And that was kind of the place that a lot of people worked things out.
How did you protect your mental health?
You know, it is hard. You're juggling a lot of stuff. And it's hard in the sense that you don't do everything perfectly. In fact, some things you don't even do very well, right? But you do the best you can, which I think is all anybody can ask. And some days you think, wow, I did great. And other days it's just like, this has not been one of my best. It's a different world now because it's not just moms with kids, it's dads with kids. Now I hope at least that for me and in our law firm, our appeal is that we try to encourage people to have lives. Now, there's going to be times when you're working really hard and you're not tending to your personal business, but not all the time. It's a balancing act. It may be a different balancing act these days than it was back then because I was really determined to prove that, I could get people out of jail just like Randy Levitt.
Was there particular low moments that occurred during your legal career that you've had to deal with?
When my boys were 2 and 4 in 1996, I moved to Houston to try a lawsuit for 4 months. And it was a 4-month trial, 5-month trial against Sussman Godfrey. And it was all hands on deck. It wasn't just our law firm. It was Baker Botts and David Beck and a lot of people. But we were living in Houston and my family was in Austin. And when they would come visit me, I was not that engaged. That was hard. It's hard picking up and leaving your family. We had my friend Sheila, who was our nanny that worked for us, and that helped a lot. And James was working for the LCRA, and that helped a lot because he kind of had a 9-to-5 job. But that's hard. That's a hard thing. One of the things that helped me through that, there was an executive vice president of the company that we were representing. And, I was having a hard time. And he said to me, you know what? You're having a hard time, but don't act that way around your kids. Act like it's just fine and it's just normal. They're going to get through it. They're not even going to remember it, right? Because they're 2 and 4. But you have to, present that you can do this and that this is okay. Because in a few months, you're going to be back with your family. And that really sort of did help. I don't think I maimed my children for life by being gone for 4 months, but you'd have to ask them. I don't think they even remember it.
What advice would you give a new incoming president?
I think there's really 2 things to look at for me. One is is the whole piece that I talked about earlier in terms of having community and being friends with people that are not like you, right? That don't have the same opinions that you have. You figure out through all of these things how to figure out the best and maybe the worst, but the best in other people and what their capabilities are. That's thing one, I think, is to understand that sometimes it's the people that are the most different from you that you can be the best friends with and get the most help from. That's number one. And the other thing I think I've learned through being president of this and that and doing this public service work is you're not going to make everybody happy. You know, some people are not going to like you. And if you can, if you don't make a few enemies, then probably you haven't been much of a leader, frankly. It's okay to have differences of opinions. And if you can do that, and that's what we're lacking these days. People think you have to hate the other side, and you don't. You don't have to hate the other side in law practice. You don't have to hate the other side in your bar events. Everybody's got a different opinion, and that's okay. And it's really important to listen to those different opinions. So that's what I would say is you're not going to get along with everybody, but you should listen to other people because they may be smarter than you, and they may have an insight that you don't have and a skill you don't have. And it is should be a badge of honor that you can rely on other people and not just yourself.
Have you ever had to deal with an ethical dilemma?
Sure.
How did you resolve it?
I will say that I have given a lot of advice to others about ethical dilemmas and encountered them myself. And I tell them the same thing that I tell myself, which is if someone calls me and says, I got this question, I have this dilemma, I have this feeling about something, I think it comes down to listening to your gut instincts. If you have to think about it very hard, you should talk to other people. You should seek the counsel of people they may be younger and wiser or older and wiser, but don't be afraid to talk to others. And if something's troubling you and you think that just doesn't seem right, it's probably not right. You know, if it's making you uncomfortable, it's probably not right. And that sometimes involves firing a client. I can't represent you if that's the way you're going to be. And I can't represent you if you're not going to tell the truth. If you lose a client, sometimes you just lose a client. We're all going to have times when we're anxious, times when we're depressed. We're all going to have those moments. And if someone tells you that they've never had one, they're not paying attention or they're lying to you. Everybody has those things. So we should not sit around and think, but so-and-so never has that. I mean, one of the reasons I dealt with mental health when I was state bar president is because my friend Matt Kidd had taken his life, and my friend Mike Bradford had taken his life. I came to realize that people that were on the Court of Appeals and people that were U.S. attorneys and people that we put on a pedestal had those moments too. And so you should watch out for yourself, but you need to watch out for other people.